Great. Hello. Today I'm speaking with Andrea Corbin. I asked her to join me because I've heard a lot of great things about a new organization that she started called We Love Minneapolis. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So maybe you could start by just telling us what is We Love Minneapolis and
Yeah, well, We Love Minneapolis is a grassroots organization electrifying the voter base, getting people to turn out for caucus and convention and educating people on the process. A lot of people think about our elections in November, but there's a contest way ahead of time that happens in April and May, caucus and convention, that determines 95% of the outcome of the elections.
Mm-hmm. So explain that to me a little bit. A lot of people may not even be familiar with the caucus process. So We Love Minneapolis, would you say that the main goal of it is to get people out to caucus for candidates? Is that right?
Yes, to participate in the process, right? And find people that share our vision, want to see a safer Minneapolis, don't like the trajectory that we're headed on and want to see a change. So we want to get people involved in the democracy that we have and the process. And the caucus and convention is an extremely critical part of it. And most people aren't even aware that it's taking place.
And why is that? Why do you think that, if it's such a fundamental part of city politics, why do people not know that caucusing happens and that these conventions happen? Is that something the DFL is not promoting well, or?
Well, I mean, Terry, I think I am to blame in this whole thing too, because a year and a half ago, I had no clue about what my city council person did. I had no clue how much control they have over the city and the purse strings and all the things that they're responsible for. I had no idea. And so if I had no idea, I feel like a lot of other people just aren't involved in the political process, period. Like maybe you'll hear about an election happening and you'll go vote. But, to really do a deep dive in how all these political processes work, I think for most people, they're just busy. They're busy living their lives, raising their families, going to work, and they just don't have time to do a deep dive in politics. And, I think the biggest disconnect is that we don't understand what our city council person does. And I think if we did, more people would pay attention. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the biggest disconnect. It'd be great if we could build a little more awareness around what our city council is responsible for and how it affects us. But, Terry, most people don't pay attention when the city's, going pretty good, right? I mean, for the most part, you got your garbage picked up, you feel somewhat safe. Sure, you've got crime, but I think a lot more people start paying attention when things aren't the status quo. And that's what we've been seeing, right? That's definitely my story, where you go, oh my gosh, something's different about the city, and I got to find out why. Yeah,
let's talk about that a little bit more. So what exactly, was there one specific event that triggered you to start this, or is it just a series of events, or, what made you kind of want to get off the sidelines, if you will, and have an impact on this election this year?
Well, I opened a little flower shop on 27th and Lindale, and the subway 2 doors next to me got held up at gunpoint 4 times last summer. And I started really going, my gosh, this isn't normal. This doesn't feel normal.
Right.
Something isn't right. There was the reconstruction on Hennepin Avenue, and then we had the reconstruction on Lindale coming down the pike, and a lot of the process with that too, I didn't feel was very fair and very democratic. Felt like it was very rigged, and there was a kind of a predetermined path that everybody was headed on. So it felt awkward. I didn't feel like we really had a voice. And so I did a deep dive on, who's responsible for our roadway designs, who's responsible for the public safety, and all roads led back to city council. I said, okay, well, how do I get involved? How do these people get elected?
Right.
Right?
So something you mentioned there, it was funny. You said preordained. I've heard other people say that on big projects like this, that they feel like they're preordained. What do you mean by that? Like, is it the city staff have already decided, or a certain group of city councilors, or what does that mean? That because we've seen projects, and Hennepin might be one of them, but certainly George Floyd Square, where community input is the majority is ignored, right? But there's maybe a 30 or 40% that they seem to be heard more, if you will.
Yeah. So
what do you mean when you say preordained?
Well, long story. Do we
got
have time?
some time.
Okay.
We got a little time.
So I asked Josh Potter, who is a senior Hennepin County engineer, at the first public engagement meeting that I went to. There was maybe 3 businesses in that meeting, and the room was full of what was obviously a coalition, right? They had matching buttons, matching gear, and it was a bicycle coalition. And I had no clue that we had a coalition in the city. And so I asked Josh Potter, I said, is there an advocacy group or a coalition of sorts that advocates for, bike lanes? He goes, yes, there are. And he said, they're very powerful and they're very loud. And if you want any chance to keep parking on Lyndale, then you better get organized. And so I went home and I did a lot of research. And I found out that there is a group who gets government funds. The group is called Our Streets. And they work in tandem with Move Minnesota. And they get grants based on the Safe Streets program. Mm-hmm. So it's Vision Zero, and they'll get a grant to analyze roadways. So maybe it's $800,000 or 1.2. It's not small sums of money. So they get this grant to analyze roadways. And of course, they want to analyze the most dangerous roadways. And so, of course, it's our busiest roadways. There are commercial roadways that are most dangerous that would most likely qualify for this Vision Zero grant, right? To make the streets, quote unquote, safer. Mm-hmm. And so they'll get a federal grant, and then they'll use that money to further their initiative. So they have what's called Action Network. It's an online platform that they can send out hundreds of thousands of emails at once and get all their activists to send in letters. And they do, organizing sessions. They do door knocking sessions. One of the individuals on our street actually got an email from our street saying that they were door knocking with DSA. So they're working in tandem with the DSA and other groups.
So I just want to clarify, what's DSA?
Democrat Socialists of America.
Right. And I think there's probably a lot of people that don't understand that they're not an official party in the city the way the DFL is, but they really are essentially another political party. But It's this weird thing where they get to... they because they're not a real party, they can kind of show up at the caucuses.
Absolutely. There's a very deliberate reason why they're not a political party, because the DFL rules state that no other political party can join and be a part of the caucuses. And so if they were a political party, then they wouldn't be able to participate. That's something that's very important to note, that they made it deliberate that they weren't a political party so that they could participate in the DFL caucuses and essentially hijack the brand. And that's exactly what's happened. There's 2%, actually what we found out is 1.2% of the demographics in the city actually show up and participate in caucus and conventions. And so it's a very clever way for a very small group to get a big stronghold and powerful hold on a big city, right? I mean, they're not addressing or going into smaller towns because it's a lot harder to hide. They're going into bigger cities where they can infiltrate and nobody knows the wiser, right? There's 70 or 80 people in their precinct caucus.
Yeah, so I just want to, I think you explained it well, but I want to just highlight that. So the number of people, I think you said, that go to the caucuses is 5,200, right? And there's 13 different caucuses.
It's actually a lot less because that's the total number of delegates that are allowed to participate citywide. So that it rounds up to about 400 delegates per ward.
Okay.
So of that, maybe 200 or 300 people will show up to that caucus and convention. That's the max that you can have. So it's actually a lot less. But yes, it's a number of people that show up at caucus. And I really had a hard time understanding it until somebody explained it to me like this. Andrea, if you and I were running in Ward 10, and we were both running as DFLers, right? And I organized 70 people to show up to caucus, and you organized 30 people to show up to caucus. And let's say in that ward there's 10 allowable delegates. I would get 7 of those delegates, and you would get 3. So it is a numbers game. It is all about who shows up.
So that's something I wasn't quite aware of. So then the 70 people in your example, or
so let's say
70 so let's say there's 100 people at the caucus.
Yeah.
That's not the number of delegates that go to the convention. You get, say, 10 people.
An allocation, yeah, which is about 400 delegates per ward. But then it gets even more complicated and it's splintered off. And this is where you go, why don't more people know about this? Because who takes the time to really study and understand this?
Right.
Most people, they're just like, yeah, I'll participate, I'll show up. And they've showed up for years and still don't understand how it works. So there's a certain amount of delegates that can show up to each precinct too. So that's also based on the last 2 cycles. So if there's a big flood, if there was a big showing of people in, XYZ precinct, then there's more delegates that would be allowed to go through in the next cycle.
So getting back to We Love Minneapolis, so your group then is hosting like house meetings, making phone calls, helping to educate people in the city about this, kind of archaic process to try and motivate more people to participate.
It's critically important. 10 years ago, caucus and convention used to be a sleeping animal. You could maybe organize 150 delegates and you had a really good chance of winning the DFL endorsement. But because the caucus process has been so hyper-focused by these activist groups, you have to organize about 300 people to win the endorsement now. It's a big number. And so with people that are, not showing up, and then you get the activists that show up, it's no wonder who we have elected in our city. 95% of the individuals that get the DFL endorsement end up winning their seat. Mm-hmm. So it's a very clever plan. I mean, the DSA knew what they needed to do to get the endorsement, and which then in turn, wins the election for them.
But your group's not associated with like any specific candidate, right? It's just a sort of a get out the vote almost sort of campaign. It
is, yeah. I mean, we've been doing a lot of canvassing under a 501c4, and we just transitioned into a PAC so that we could talk about, candidates that we support. There's a few wards that we're actually supporting multiple candidates in. But we want to make sure that, people understand the difference between the policies of these individuals that are running. And that was my issue too in the last year and a half. When I first started getting involved in politics, I would open their websites and look at these people, and I wouldn't be able to tell, right? Because I feel like the DSA runs a very vanilla campaign, and then the moderates are kind of worried they're gonna say or do the wrong thing, and so it all looks just vanilla, and so it's hard for you to really cipher through what the actual policies of these individuals are. So our group, I think we really want to dive into a lot more of those policies and get people aware of what their platforms really are and how they're voting.
So what are some of the policies that your group is promoting?
Yeah.
And is it two groups now? It's the 401c and a PAC, or are there just a PAC now? Or
501c4 and the PAC. Yeah.
Okay.
So they kind of work in tandem, and they have different functions.
Right.
And the money's spent differently in both organizations. So it's a vehicle to.
So what are the some of the policies? What would you say are the top three policies that when you talk to someone that you think will motivate them to get out and go to the caucus?
Yeah. I mean, really, we're looking for a vibrant city. I mean, the bottom line is when our city suffers, our most vulnerable suffer. Watching, our most vulnerable using drugs on the street and having a hard time not being able to get into housing is it's heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And it affects business, it affects residents. Every single resident in Minneapolis is seeing a hike in their insurance rates. They're seeing a hike in their auto insurance rates. They're seeing a hike in their rents because property insurance is going up and vandalism is going up, which hikes the apartment owners' insurance rates. So this doesn't benefit anybody. And that's, I feel, the big lie that the DSA is really taunting and sharing with everybody. It's like, oh, we care about all these people. Well, no. In the name of caring, they're not. In the name of justice, it's a huge injustice to our entire city, and it's affecting our most vulnerable. This doesn't affect somebody that's got a six-figure income as much as it does somebody who's working a minimum wage job, and every dollar counts. I was a single mom. I raised 4 kids, and I can remember when McDonald's was extremely tough decision for me. Should I take the kids to McDonald's today? This is a $20 bill for me. And back then, I had 4, and they maybe both shared a Happy Meal together. But it's like I remember those days when every dollar counted, and so if we really take a look at that, people that are just everyday citizens, people who own businesses, people who don't own businesses should stand up and really fight for everyone in the city right now, because it's affecting everyone. This whole notion of, corporate greed and this and that, and businesses are bad, demonizing businesses, demonizing, our police officers and public safety is just crazy to me. The only thing that separates us from a third world country is public safety. If you think about it, there's a lot of countries where the wealthiest people hire security guards and they're protected. Right. And guess who suffers the most? It's, people that can't afford the security, they can't afford the gated community. Those are the ones that are being affected the most. So I really believe that when our community thrives, everybody thrives. Everybody has opportunity. When you can open the doors to entrepreneur workshops for young kids that maybe want to have the opportunity to own a business someday, that's an exciting thing, right? We need to get excited about the possibility of opportunity again, because this message of corporations are horrible and bad and everything's just going down the tank, so we may as well all be socialists, right? Let's just throw in the towel and move into a socialist or communist agenda. It just doesn't make any sense. It is a transference of power is really all it is.
So one of the things that you organized that I attended, and maybe you could just talk to people a little bit about that, the tour of Uptown that you did with the mayor. What was the the goal of that, and do you think it was effective?
I think it was very effective, yes. I mean, so we printed out posters that said vacant or closed, and we put them in all the buildings that were closed or vacant, and it was a staggering number. It was a lot. I mean, we walked past a lot of garbage. We walked past, some people that were down and out and living on the street, and it was just a really, really depressing walk. And it was freezing cold too. And I reminded Mayor Fry that Knollwood Mall is only 7 minutes away. People don't realize that other people have options, and everybody wants to be in an inspiring, beautiful environment that gets them up in the morning. Nobody wants to go and look at a depressed environment with vacant buildings and garbage everywhere. I mean, it's not the environment people want to shop in. So when people have options, they go somewhere else, and that's what's happening with our city. I feel really positive about change. I think we need to do it together. It can't be just, onesie twosie businesses coming here or there, opening up. I think we need to come in a flood, but businesses are not going to come into the area until we have a city council that is supportive of those businesses and give them an environment they need to succeed. A lot of people ask me, and what's the secret of small business? What do you need? You need more regulation, you need more help, you need more funding, what is it? And the bottom line is we need a good environment. That is the biggest thing that the city officials can give us, is a good environment to do business in. And
by that, what makes a good environment? It sounds like, obviously public safety is part of that. Is that more than that? I think you mentioned like trash needing to be picked up. There's been some candidates that have talked about supporting a business improvement district for Uptown, which is that, I don't know if that's one of the things your group supports, or like how, other than just public safety, what is it that the city council could do to create a better environment? I'm a huge supporter of the BID, and I don't want to speak for the group, but I can definitely speak for myself personally that the BID is going to be a game changer for Uptown. Especially because the city doesn't have a lot of funding right now to provide extra services to the Uptown area. I think this would be a huge benefit. We would be able to hire an individual to pick up garbage, hire an individual to shovel all the sidewalks, somebody to paint graffiti full time. Under the special services districts that we have, just a couple in the area, we have one in the Lynn Lake area, and we have another one on Hennepin. The city has a list of menu items that you can pick from, and the graffiti painting and some of these other a la carte things that we want to bring into the area that's really going to benefit. The city doesn't offer those things. And so the city also manages and runs the money in the special services district. And so they hire out individuals from their kind of platform, if you will, right? They've got a city individual that does all the plowing for the special services districts. And so you couldn't hire a private entity to come in and plow, right? You'd have to use the city services. So there's a lot of cost savings that could be generated there, but we're looking to expand the area too, all the way down Lyndale, all the way down Hennepin. And so you're looking to expand the special services district?
BID.
Okay. But that doesn't, just to be clear, it doesn't exist yet, right?
No.
It's one of the things you kind of like, the policies that you support.
Yeah.
Bringing them
and it's actually pretty easy to do. You need the support of 25% of the value of the properties in the designated area in order to do it. And you need to have a board of directors, fiduciary agent, which is somebody to handle the money. It's great to have an executive director, somebody that can really run and manage it. But there's some ordinances that need to be changed too at the city, on the city level, that needs to match the state. But I mean, for the most part, I see a very easy path. It's just, rolling up our sleeves and getting the work done. But I think once it's in place, it's going to be a huge relief for a lot of businesses. I mean, I spend a lot of time picking up garbage and painting over the graffiti in the summer. I had a brick smashed in through my window, and it's just the loitering and the extra, mental health issues that we're seeing with the homelessness and the extra garbage pickup. It's a compounding burden on the businesses in the area to try to even.
And so do you think when Mayor Fry came to the walk through Uptown that he heard that message, that these are some of the things that businesses are struggling with?
He absolutely did. I think what's really frustrating for Mayor Fry is that he does not have a council that supports his mission. And so time after time, he's vetoed something. They don't uphold the veto. He doesn't have any power, or he wants something passed. The city council doesn't approve it. And, it doesn't go anywhere. People don't understand that Mayor Fry, yes, he is responsible for the departments that he supervises, but the ways and means of that is determined by the city council. Meaning, if they put an ordinance that says you can't clear encampments, it doesn't matter if the mayor tells his staff, go clear them, they can't clear them because the city council is setting, regulation against that. It's the same thing with our budget dollars. Mayor Fry wants to, have some money for more recruitment, and the city council votes that down. Maybe he supports ShotSpotter, which Katie Cashman voted against. He saw a different vision for the Labor Standards Board, and the city council, wanted a very aggressive, panel of individuals that it was a very one-sided approach.
So is something like the Labor Standards Board, is that part of We Love Minneapolis? Do they take a position on that?
No, we're not deep diving into all the different issues. There's just so many that we could pick. No, so public safety is a big one. We want an everybody in, nobody out approach. We believe that we need a wonderful, fully staffed, accountable police department. We need our violence interrupters. We need our mental health programs. We need our fire department, and everybody should be working together for the common goal of public safety.
Right.
The other thing is.
So can I just ask? I know one of the things I think that maybe was motivational for you to get started, and you touched on it, was the construction along Lyndale. I think, everyone saw kind of what happened to businesses with Hennepin, and it wasn't just Hennepin. We talked about, but it was Hennepin and Lake at the same time. They were both under construction, and it really hurt businesses in that neighborhood. It was kind of like the final straw, I think, for a lot of businesses that were already struggling. So when I first learned about your work, it was because you felt like someone had to do something about Lyndale to try and make sure that businesses could stay open when they start construction. Could you just talk a little bit about that and your position on Lyndale?
Yeah, well, Lyndale looks a lot different than Hennepin does, and Hennepin has a few parking lots, right? But still, it doesn't supply a parking lot for every single business. I think that the biggest thing for the businesses on Lyndale, and one thing that was interesting when I went door to door to every single business, and I did this with Syed that owns World Street Kitchen. We went door to door to every business right after that first public engagement meeting, and I wasn't sure what I would find, right? Do my fellow business owners feel the same way I do? Do they want the same vision for Lyndale? I don't know. Maybe they were supportive of, bike lanes and the removal of parking. Maybe they didn't think they needed it. But when I went door to door and talked to every single business owner, I got a resounding, unified front on exactly how we felt about the street and what we wanted. And we actually were very supportive of the 4-to-3 conversion, which, slowed down traffic. And
Can you, for people who don't know what that means?
So it used to be 2 lanes one way, 2 lanes the other way, and we didn't have a turn lane in the middle. Now we have a turn lane in the middle, and it's one lane of traffic on both sides.
And that's called a 4-3 conversion?
4-to-3 conversion.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a middle turn lane. Yes.
It's now 3. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the the crosswalks that they installed, I thought really worked nicely, especially in the summertime when you've got a lot of pedestrian traffic and people, want to feel safe to be able to go to my shop and then maybe they walk across the street and go get some ice cream and frequent a few other stores on the other side of the street. So I felt like it really made it more of a boulevard, Main Street, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I don't know a main street in the entire state that doesn't have parking. It's like everybody needs to be able to park in front of a business and be able to frequent it, especially in the really cold winter months that we have.
And so they haven't, the 4-to-3 conversion happened on Lindale.
Yeah.
But you're more concerned about what's coming. Is that
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And I think it's 2026 they're going to tear up Lindale?
I think we're sneaking into 2027. Yeah. I mean, I'm really concerned about all the traffic that's being pounded into the uptown area in a short period of time. And this goes back to the Vision Zero because these groups analyze the roadway and then they get federal dollars. It triggers federal dollars to come in and give a percentage of the roadway project. And then Hennepin County and the city step in and they say, great, we have, 10 million or 15 million that's going to go towards the construction of the street. Doesn't fall all on the burden of the city. Let's do the project. And then you lose it, or you use the funds or you lose it. And so it triggers this time frame, which, if you think about it, nobody's going to these groups like our streets and saying, wait a minute, time out. You can't analyze all these different busy corridors that, yes, might qualify for Vision Zero funds when it's going to put the entire city's commercial corridors under construction at the same time.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing that. Nobody's going, you know what, maybe this isn't a good idea. An individual that used to run the Bicycle Coalition that Lisa Bender formed now is the transportation department head in the city of Minneapolis.
Is that right?
And again, the city of Minneapolis transportation department is appointees by the city council, by the mayor some, and by the city council. So who we elect in office matters.
Right.
Because they choose all their people to run these different departments.
So you mentioned the walking around and talking to businesses. So is it safe to say then that your group is hoping to find and support council candidates that are open to listening to business and getting more of their feedback than has happened in the past? Is that safe to say that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, this has been a really interesting conversation. I want to jump back to just the logistics again of the caucus. You mentioned, because the numbers are confusing, but if anything, you're wanting to get, are you trying to get all 5,200 people out for the caucuses?
We are trying to get way more than that.
Okay, all right.
And you know what? We're going to shoot for the stars and hopefully hit the ceiling. I mean, as you know, you can invite 200 people to a dinner or, an engagement, and maybe 50 people are RSVP and then 30 people show up, right?
Okay,
So,
all right. So
the goal is to get as many people involved and show up in the process. If people realized, if I told you that you and I could change the trajectory of the city, the future of Minneapolis, by taking one night on April 8th for a couple hours of your time and a Saturday, would you do it? Yes, you would, but people don't understand how powerful the caucus process is, in that there's a direct correlation between people who get elected and people who get the endorsement.
Right.
So just by you showing up, everybody thinks, oh, well, the DFL caucus process, it's where the DFL vets their people. No, it's not. It's about who in the community shows up to support a specific candidate. If they get 60% of the showing of people that came there for them, they win the endorsement. So
at the caucus.
At the caucus.
Before. So then what's the convention?
The convention is where the delegates go vote. So it's just, if you show up to caucus and you have 60% of the people at caucus will support the candidate you want to win. When they go to the convention, you get 60% of the delegates, and those are the people that vote. So,
and that's what the threshold is, right? Your candidate needs to have 60% to win. So I think in 2023 there were several races where, or at least one, where they had the weird thing happen where like people rushed the stage or something. There was a lot of confusion over the rules, and like they kind of canceled the caucus, right? And no one got the endorsement. Yep. And I think there was a couple other maybe races where no endorsement. What happens in that instance? I mean, let's say your candidate only gets 58%. Then you block the endorsement, and no endorsement happens.
So I think it's 40%, right? You have to have more than 40%. So, I mean, what happened in that scenario that you're talking about is that there wasn't an interpreter in the room, and I think that was a big miss. There was a lot of persons in there that supported a specific candidate that did not speak English. And so when Aisha Chuktai came on the stage, all of, I think, Warsami's supporters thought that she was announcing a win, and it made them really upset. And so nobody was there to really explain the process and tell them what was going on. And that's what happened. I mean, it's not very typical that you have a scenario like that.
Right. Okay.
And I don't see that being an issue in this cycle. But, I mean, obviously, there's a first time for everything. But the biggest thing is to get people who care about the city to show up. That's the best thing that you can do. If you care about public safety and you want to see change in your city, this is the biggest thing that you can do for the city. If you just take 2 days out of your schedule, mark those days, do not miss them, make it a really, really important thing for you to go.
And do you have to be registered to vote to go to the caucus?
You do not. You have to live in the ward. And you have to live in the precinct that you're in. So once you arrive on caucus night, they're going to send you to your classroom, which is the separate precincts in all the different...
I guarantee you nobody knows their precinct. I'm not even sure I know mine.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just if you take...
They'll tell you, right?
Yeah. If you take a map of Ward 10 and just put circles around it, it's basically a geographical area splitting up the ward into subgroups.
Yeah, like 10.
Right?
So I think I might be like an 8-8 or something like that.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, the most important thing is just showing up. You'll go to your classroom, and then, you'll all vote in that classroom for, who's going to be the delegates. Mm-hmm. So if you have a majority in the room, that majority in the room is going to vote for their people to go on to be delegates, right? It's a real simple thing. It's a majority vote.
Right.
It's not the DFL vetting the candidate and making sure their policies align with DFL policies. That's not what this is. This is a democratic thing that everybody can participate in. And if activists are the ones showing up to the caucus, that's who goes on to the convention to vote these people in to get the DFL endorsement. It's that simple.
So great. Where can, if listeners are interested in finding out more about your group or contacting you, what should they do? Is there a website, a phone number, email?
Yes, there is. You can go to weloveminneapolis.org, and it's MPLS. It's not the full. And then you can sign up to show up to caucus. We would encourage you, too, to look up the candidates in your ward, and you can call them directly and tell them that you want to be a delegate for them. That's a really good idea, too. And the best thing that you can do to support the candidate that you want to win is to caucus for them.
Okay. And is there information about different candidates on the website, or they just go to the candidate website?
We're going to be putting up some of the candidates on our website shortly. We don't have them up yet. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of the individuals that are running their websites are already up. So,
great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we missed that you wanted to talk about before we close out here?
I think we covered a lot.
We did.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.